stumbling down the road with Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff as she carries stones, digs holes, and wheels her shovels on her way. This road is the real path. It is never easy and never clear, but always entertaining. This journey has not been a seated event, as Bridgette walks, runs, stumbles, carries, digs, drags, laughs, fights, sings, prays, dances, kicks, screams, and oftentimes falls.
Hey everybody, it's Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. Your host, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, and you are listening to Revolution Radio. Hey, you can go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and you can collect the fund, or click the funding, and see all the different ways that you could fund us. We are 100% listener supported. Everybody that helps out here at Revolution Radio does everything voluntarily. So we try to bring you information, important stuff. We're always looking for, if you think, you could be a good host, we do have some host openings. I advertise on Revolution Radio my online healthcare business. So that's how I support my network. We also have archives and heirloom seeds in all kinds of ways. Or if you just want to toss us a few bucks, that would be great. Anyway, I had kind of a busy morning. I was doing some guest juggling, but my original guest that was scheduled made it. Yay! And then we had some weird time weirdness, but I'll just leave it up to how weird everything is anyway. We just really don't know if we're coming or going these days. But I'm really excited to also, when you're on Revolution Radio, you can go to Studio A, go to the schedule, click on Studio A, scroll down to either my edition on Wednesdays or Carrying Stones edition on Saturdays. Click on the B, and then there's a back page where you can find information about me, links, and contact information. So if you want to contact me, and the email address is consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com if you want to contact me for any reason, like, love, or hate me. All right. So anyway, we have the astounding, one of my favorite people to actually have on my show, Mr. Jordan Maxwell. And he made it for the show. And so are you there? I see you're muted.
Yes, I am. I am here.
All right.
Thank you.
You made it. You made it. So do you want to tell everybody what your websites and all your information are, so that way if they want to go there and take a look while we're talking, they can do so?
Sure. It's jordanmaxwellshow.com. Very important they remember to put in the word show, because there are different websites out on the web with my name on them, but they don't belong to me. Other people are using my name to make money. So there is only one website I have, and it's Jordan Maxwell Show. Jordan like the river. So jordanmaxwellshow.com is my website. And when you go on that website, you will also see a second website that I have. And you'll see the little flyer for it, and it says Jordan Maxwell Research Society. Click on that, and you have to join that research society. It's not public. You have to join it. And the reason why is because my attorney friends have told me that the kind of information that I'm putting out in documents, especially, are so very controversial that it would be better to put it out in private rather than put it out into the public. So if you go on my website to Jordan Maxwell Show and then click on Jordan Maxwell Research Society, that's where all of my information that I've been dealing with for years I'm uploading, or my webmaster is uploading for me, and there's only so much he can do each day. And so we've got an enormous website on the research, but we're putting that much more on little by little each day. And so it's a one-time donation for a lifetime subscription, one-time payment for a lifetime subscription. So that's how to get a hold of me. And of course, I have emails on both of my websites. If you go on Jordan Maxwell Show, there's a contact button, and you can contact me and email me if you wish. I'll try and get back to you. I guess that's about it.
Great. All right. So last time you were on, you said this time you were going to come on and you wanted to specifically talk about admiralty law. So do you want to talk about that, or do you have something else you want to talk about, or you want to talk about it all?
I think admiralty is important enough that we should talk about it today again. I've talked about it so many times that I know that there are people who have already heard me, but it is a subject that everybody should hear. And I never know who's in the audience who may not have heard. So I think it's wise to talk about admiralty.
Sounds good. I think it's very important too, because it's kind of like the base foundation, that I think people first come across when they start to learn how, widely they've been deceived. So go ahead and.
Well, let me give you an example of how money works in America. Most people do not know that much about money and how it actually works. Suppose you are a painting contractor and I want my office painted. We're talking business. And so I contact you to paint my office. You come over, check out the job, and see where it's going to take you and how much it's going to cost, and you give me an estimate. And on the estimate, it says $100 to paint my office. And so when you're through with the job, you come to me with a bill, and the bill is for $100, and you're expecting me to pay you the $100. And point of fact, I will open up my wallet and pull out a $100 bill and hand it to you, and I have paid you. You're happy and I'm happy. But actually, in point of fact, I paid you nothing. A zero, I paid you nothing. Because you gave me a bill for $100, I gave you a $100 bill. If you had given me a bill for $20, I'd reach in my pocket and give you a $20 bill. Because the money I'm carrying in my pocket, in my wallet, is a bill. It's a $100 bill, $20 bill, a $5 bill, and a $1 bill. So the point being is that you're giving me a bill, I'm giving you a bill. And that bill means you owe me the same amount that you think I owe you. And since you owe me the same amount as I owe you, then we're even. So now all we got to do is just keep a record of it, have a record of it. Because I haven't paid you anything. You did the work, I didn't, and I didn't pay you anything. I did not pay the bill. What I did is I discharged the debt. I didn't pay the bill. So just remember that. This is why in America today, no matter what you paid for your house or what you paid for your car or what you paid for your boat or any big item, you do not own. You don't own your children. You don't own your home. You don't own your car, your motorcycle. It just doesn't matter what it is. You don't own it. You may have an equitable interest in it, meaning you got money involved in it that you had to pay to get it, but you don't own it. There's a big difference between having an equitable interest in something and actually owning it. Owning it means nobody can touch it. It's yours forever. But that's not true on anything you buy in America. You don't own anything. This is why the government can come in and take your house. If they're going to put a freeway through town and your house is in the way, they can come in and take it. And they'll pay you for it for your equitable interest. Whatever money you have in it, They will make a deal and give you some money for it, but they will kick you out and take your home because you don't own it. And so the idea is if you want to own something, you have to buy it with a particular kind of title. It's called an allodial title. Allodial. Allodial. Allodial title means you absolutely own it. Nobody can touch your house. No one can touch your car. Whatever it is that you purchase with an allodial title means you own it, period. And no one can come in and take it or do anything with it without your permission, period. So a lot of people do not know about allodial title. Again, spell Allodial. Allodial means that you have a sovereign, absolute right to own something, which means banks, presidents, kings, the Lord Jesus, and nobody else can touch anything you own allodial. It's locked in forever as your possession. No one can take it. The Federal Reserve, the federal government, the United Nations, nobody can touch it. And so a lot of people don't know how the world really works and how commerce really works. And people put their money in a bank, never realizing, what are you doing putting your money in a bank? Banks are on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency. Your money is liquid asset. It's a current, ebb and flow. It comes in, it goes out. It comes in, but it goes out. Just continually, the money, like your waves of the sea, come in and goes out. So it's called currency. And so when you realize that your money is a cash flow, a liquid asset, and it's based on your body, which is 80% water to start with, and when you were born, you came out of your mother's birth canal. You came out of your mother's water. So you were a maritime, which means of the sea. You were a maritime law. You were a maritime item, or a maritime, what they call it, maritime banking item. And so this is why when a ship pulls into a harbor, all ships, flying ships, rocket ships, sailing ships, it doesn't matter. If we refer to it as a ship, it's a she. It's always a female. This is why you will hear captains talking about their ship, and they say things like, oh, she's very, very dependable, and she's been very good, and she's been very dependable, and she's this and she's that. Why do captains of an airship always call their ship she? Because by law, all ships on the earth, any kind of a ship, is a female. Why? Because she delivers the product. Without her, there is no product. And so therefore, when you get married, the husband is the manufacturer. The husband is a manufacturer. The woman is in labor, creating the product he has manufactured. And so there's a real interesting dark secrets to the world of banking and commerce and government and how all of this stuff really works. And so you need to understand how government works and how the money works and who prints it and what the terms mean and why you have to go to court. You have to go to court because you play basketball on a court. You play tennis on a court. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket because the whole thing is a racket. And you think these words are by chance, but you better go back and understand nothing is by chance in government. If it's a word that's used, it means something, and you better go back and find out what it means and why they're using that term. It's an interesting story about how the world really works. And there's so many little things about the world that we live with every day and don't even realize how it works. And what I'm going to tell you now, I am not suggesting that you do anything with it. I am not a lawyer. I simply happen to be well aware of how the world works. And so I'm going to tell you a couple of things that you probably didn't know. But I'm not suggesting that you do anything about it. And the reason why is because until and unless you are an absolute expert in the subjects I'm going to talk to you about, unless you are an expert's expert, I would not touch it, because you can go to jail doing the things I'm going to tell you about if you don't do it right, because you're playing a very, very heady game with some very powerful people who you call government. And so one of the things that people do all the time and they don't think about, and again, I'm not suggesting you have to do anything, just educate yourself, learn about it, and that way you can stay out of trouble. Don't try and do anything unless you know what you're doing. But when a police pull you over on the highway, the street, and they pull you over to give you a ticket, I'm giving you an example of how things work that people don't even think about. When a cop gives you a ticket, he pulls you over and he comes up and he's writing out a ticket. And then he gives you the ticket. He's expecting you're going to pay for the ticket. So what happens is he's filling out the ticket, what the charge is, like when you go into Sears with a credit card, you're going to be charged for whatever it is you buy. Well, you're going to buy this ticket. And don't say, I'm not buying it. No, you are buying it. He's writing out a ticket and he's handing it to you. But here's what you don't realize. When the cop pulls out the ticket and he's filling out the ticket, he's expecting you to pay, he's writing the ticket out and he signs it. Then he hands it to you and you sign it. And now you're expected to pay the ticket. But you never thought, when you are signing that ticket, you are a undersigner. You are a co-signer on the ticket. He signed the ticket first, then you signed it. So you are a co-signer on the ticket in commerce. Why? Because money is going to change hands. It's going to cost you money for that ticket, and you're going to have to pay it. But you are a co-signer with him. He filled out the ticket. You didn't. It's his ticket. And he signed it first. So you are a co-signer. That being the case, you can take that ticket. I've seen it done. I wouldn't do it myself ever, because I'm not that smart. I'm not that clever. I'm not an expert's expert. I just know that I've seen it done. And so you take that ticket, photocopy that ticket, and then you get some sort of an affidavit. I've seen people do it, get an affidavit and sign it, saying that you have decided that you made a mistake. You don't want to co-sign for somebody. And so if you wanted to buy a car, you don't have the money, you go in to get credit, and they don't want to give you credit because you don't have any credit. If I sign for you, I'm a co-signer, which means if you don't pay for the car, I have to, because I co-signed. Well, that's what you did on the ticket. You co-signed it. He signed it first. He's the one that wrote it out and gave it to himself, and he signed it. Then he gave it to you. So now you're a co-signer. So you take that ticket, photocopy it, and send it with an affidavit to the Secretary of State in which you live, whatever state you live in. You send it to the Secretary of State and simply say, I have decided I do not wish to co-sign for this officer. I made a mistake, and I quickly said I would co-sign, but after thinking about it, I don't want to co-sign for him. And then the Secretary of State will take that ticket and send it to the Treasury Department of the state treasurer, and that treasurer will then send the ticket directly to the police home, send it to the cop's address, and he has to pay it. He has to pay the ticket now, not you. Why? Because he's the one that signed it first. He's the one that wrote it out. It's his ticket, not yours. It's his ticket. He's the one that signed it, and he gave it to you to sign. You're the co-signer. So if you don't want to pay it, then let the cop pay it, and see how happy he is with paying a ticket, not realizing that he was the original signer of a ticket in commerce, and you were merely a co-signer. How many people know that? I've seen it done. In point of fact, I've seen it done. I also have seen many other things done in commerce that people have no idea in the world about how it works. I had a young friend one time who used to listen to me on late night radio in Los Angeles. I had a late night talk show in Los Angeles, and I had lots of people contacting me to learn how to do all kinds of strange things that they'd never heard of before. And I would always tell everyone, I would not do anything with what I'm telling you. I'm just talking. I'm not an attorney. I give you no legal advice. But just open up your mind and find out how the world actually works. And then you can stay out of trouble. If you already know what you're doing, you can stay out of trouble. And so a lot of people do not know that today, if you're living in North America, you are not considered by law to be an American. You're not an American. You are something called, and look it up in a law dictionary, a U.S. citizen. Not of the USA. No, it doesn't say USA. It's a U.S. citizen. U.S. is a name of a corporation. It's a company like Sears and Exxon Oil and Standard Oil and all the big corporations in America and around the world. Well, the U.S. is a corporation. Why? Because after the Civil War, North America was a lot of things, but united was not one of them. We just came through a war where one half of the Americans were trying to kill the other half, and there was a lot of animosity between the North and the South, between blacks and whites, between cowboys and Indians. There's all kinds of animosity. We had a civil war. So after our Civil War, we were anything but united. We were not united. So therefore, the Supreme Court decreed that the United States of America no longer exists in law, period. There is no United States of America. And therefore, your citizenship is not in America. You are now considered by law to be a corporation. It was decided that that's the best way to handle this country, is to make it into a privately owned company, a corporation. And therefore, everyone who lives here, every man, woman, and child living here, black or white, doesn't matter, you are an employee of a corporation like Exxon Oil. And so today, that corporation is called the United States Corporation Incorporated in 1870s, 1871. The United States became a corporation, and you became an employee of a corporation, which means that you yourself are a part of a corporation, a company. And that's why when I see you coming out of a restaurant one night with some guy, I call you the next morning and I say, I saw you out with this man last night. You need to watch out for him because he's bad company. And you say, mind your own business. We're getting married. He's going to be my partner. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Business? Mind your own business? Bad company? He's going to be your partner? That sounds like commerce. It sounds like a business. It is a business because he's a corporation and you're a corporation. He is Ford Motor Company and you're General Electric. And if you're going to make a deal between yourself to produce a new product, that's fine. It's called business, so you better get a license. This is why you have to have a marriage license because it's a piece of business. And if your business, which thank God who you get married to is none of my business, I don't care. It's your problem, not mine. But if it doesn't work out, you're not going to God. You're going to court and bring your house and your car and anything else you own because you're going to court because your marriage is simply a business. And you were given a license to conduct business. And of course, it turned out to be a bad business, which I told you he was bad company. And you said, mind your own business. And now he's a partner. So I'm just saying marriage is a corporation. It's a business. And anything you're going to do inside a corporation, you need a license. You need to get a license. Another example is if you got a brand new car. If you get a brand new car, you're going to get something in the glove compartment called an operator's manual. The operator's manual tells you all about the car, when, how, what to do with it, what not to do, when to change the oil, and all of that. So that's the information on the vehicle. So you get an operator's manual. But if you are going to use the wheels, the motorcycle, the 18-wheeler, the car, the truck, it doesn't matter what it is you bought, if you're going to use those wheels to make money, that car, truck, or whatever it is a capital item, meaning you are going to make money with it. You're going to turn the car into a cab. So now you're going to use those wheels to make money. Well, now, according to the law, you're in business, and therefore you're not an operator of the car at all. When you bought it, you get an operator's manual because you're going to operate the car. But if you're going to use those wheels for business, you're no longer an operator. By law, you are now a corporation doing business to make money, and therefore the word in law and in commerce is you are a driver. You're a bus driver, a truck driver, a cab driver. The word driver means you're using the wheels to make money, no matter what kind of wheels. So you're a driver, not an operator. And if you're a driver, that means you're doing business with those wheels, then you have to have a license to do business. So it's called a driver's license. So you need to wake up and understand the way the world has set up. It's all words and smoke and mirrors and lies and deception. And people buy into it very simply because when they're born, they're babies, and they have no idea in the world what's going on. They come into the world totally blank, and they learn from their adults. They learn from other children. They learn from everybody what to do and what not to do. So by the time you reach the ripe old age of 8 or 9 years old, you pretty well know what you can do and what you can't do. And if you want information about something, you talk to your parents, and you listen to the policemen, and you listen to your teachers, and you listen to all the adults because you're only a child, not realizing that the adults do not know what they're talking about. They're ignorant, ill-informed, unread, and only a handful of people on the earth are really clever and smart and well-read, highly intelligent, brilliant minds. 99% of the people on the earth have no idea in the world the way the world works. And it's just an incredible story of betrayal. That's why I have said people, generally speaking, people remind me of old Christmas tree lights. Half of them don't work, and the rest are not that bright. The problem today is education. The people of this world today, all over the world, including America, are totally ill-informed, uneducated, have no idea in the world what they're doing, what the words mean. What it all comes down to is that there's a handful of people at the top of the world who have put together a whole scheme of things with the words and the terms, And that if you're going to be successful in this world, then you will become a lawyer, an attorney who studies the words and the terms on how the corporation of the world works. The whole world is a corporation. It's a company. And this is why it's called the business of living. You have to know how the earth operates. You have to go back to thousands of years ago, at least 1,000 years ago, to the forming of the Vatican. The Vatican was formed after the fall of the Roman Empire. The Vatican became one of the first corporations on the earth. The Pope is the Holy Father of a worldwide corporation, a company. It's called the Vatican. And remember, the Pope is your Papa. He is the Holy Father. Why is he a Holy Father? Because he talks to God. He represents God. And so, therefore, in Italy, he is the Godfather. Get it? This is why people from all over the world, executives and wealthy people and political leaders, all go to Rome so they can go on their knees, crawl on your knees up to the Pope and kiss his ring and seek to have him bless you. Why? Because he is the Godfather. He's the Holy Father who talks to God. You mess with him, you're messing with the mafia, La Cosa Nostra. You're messing with the Italian. The incredible treason, crimes against the human family are being perpetrated every day by the whole system of religion, ethics, business. It's an incredible story about how the world really works. And if you go to a law dictionary and look up the word commerce, you think it means business. No, look up the word commerce in a law dictionary. It will tell you commerce is sex. Sex is considered commerce. It's a business. It's a very dangerous business. It's a very lethal business because you're doing business with another corporation. And so sex is referred to as commerce. And then look up the word while you're in the law dictionary. Look up the word Congress, like the United States has a Congress. Look up the word Congress in a law dictionary. It will tell you Congress is sex, S-E-X, is Congress, because the two words, one is co-res and one is Congress. You start out with co-res and you end up with Congress. And so Congress and commerce are words in the ancient Latin and the ancient Roman world for sex. Today we have commerce. It's a business. Well, I just said it was a business. If you're going to get married, you're talking about sex. If you're going to get married, you better get a license because it's a business. If it doesn't, your business doesn't work out, thank God it's none of my business. But who I'm married to is none of your business. But it is a business, and it's called sex. It's called commerce. And so I'm just saying that once you realize how the world you live in actually works and what the words really mean, then you will begin to see how you have been taken because you didn't know, your schools never told you, your churches never told you, the government never told you, no one ever told you how this trick we call human life really works. People who were here long before your great-grandmother was ever born, they put this world together a long time ago in the Roman Empire. They put it all together and they figured out how to mislead and trick people into believing things. And so you bought into it because you were born and raised into a world where the adults around you were bigger than you, but they were nothing more than children. They never grew up in their head. They got bigger. They are bigger than you are, but they're just like you. They don't know either. This is why if you got a child, the child is not going to learn anything unless the parents are highly intelligent, well-read, and brilliant, intellectually brilliant people. They will teach their children, like the Rockefellers and the J.P. Morgans and the international bankers of Chicago and New York and all the big banking houses of the world and the big corporations of all the corporate heads. Their children go to special schools, so they are well aware of how the world really works. So that when they're ready to go into a job, they are already highly intelligent young people. And now they can pick up where the father and the company left off, and they can control the world for their family, for their father. So that's where the Rockefellers got their money from, the old man Rockefeller. But they were highly educated in universities, special universities. Why? Because the people who will run the world, like George Carlin said, the guys at the top of the world today, it's like a club, and you ain't in it. It's a very highly important club of people. It's a privately owned club, and you ain't in it. So once you see how the world is a club and you're not in it, and the words, the terms are used purposely to deceive you into believing and accepting things that you don't understand, and they are living off of you. The guys at the top are the rich. The guys at the bottom who are ill-informed and unread, they stay the poor. That's why we say the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because you don't know how the world actually, in fact, works. So that's a beginning. Where do we go from here?
Well, we have like about, 15 minutes before we have our break. But I had a couple questions I wanted to throw at you.
Okay.
So, there's kind of this underlying theme that's coming out why certain countries are attacking Iran, and just won't mention who's behind that, but and sanctions. But I was reading the other day that somebody put out in the underground media that Iran is going to release the information of the Arks of the Covenant, and that there's one Ark that is in heaven, wherever that is, and then there's one Ark that's down here, and that they're used as communication devices to communicate back and forth, with the gods, right?
Yeah.
And that they have a lot of different kinds of abilities, these arcs. They could be used as a healing weapon, like in a good way or a bad way. They could destroy the planet because the gods could, send some kind of frequency or signal through.
Yeah, like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. Or it could be used, for something good. I mean, I don't know. I'm on the side that most extraterrestrials or beings that are here and everywhere else, are not positive, just because of the human cannibalism agenda that is getting crazier and crazier. I mean, there's an article that came out today about cannibalism is being promoted by academics. So,
yep. And the reason why is because thousands of years ago, in Egypt, there was a worship of a goddess. Her name was Isis, I-S-I-S, Isis. Isis was a female goddess in Egypt. And so the Hyksos people, who were not Egyptians, they were a robbing band. They were like the band of illegals coming into America across the border. They were called Hyksos people. And they came into Egypt, and in order to live in Egypt, because they were just a marauding band of people, they had no home. They just were moving around to find a home, and they could move in and eat and live with somebody else. So the Egyptians called them Hyksos people. The Hyksos people, what we call today the Jewish people, the Hebrews, were called Hyksos. And so they moved into Egypt uninvited. They were uninvited. Therefore, the word Hebrew is a derogatory term. It's not a very nice term to call somebody Hebrew, especially thousands of years ago, because Hebrew and the Egyptian world, ancient Egyptian world, meant those who crossed over illegally. Hebrew comes from the Egyptian word Hebrew, which means those who crossed over illegally. Today, we say the same thing about people who come from Mexico illegally. They are, we have terms that have been used like wetbacks, etc., but these are all derogatory terms. And so they're used to explain that these people are illegal. Well, illegal immigration has been happening since day one. People have always broken into other people's homes. There's always robberies. There's always people moving in on other people, taking what they own and ripping them off. That's always been the case. So it's still the case today. But if you go back to ancient Egypt, the worship was of a female goddess named Isis. Then the people of the Hyksos, in order to blend in with the Egyptians and be a part of the Egyptian way of life, they had to begin to look like Egyptians and act like Egyptians and eat and drink like them and live like them with their customs. So they learned all about, the Hyksos learned all about the religion of Egypt, which is the worship of Isis. Then when the coming of Pharaoh Akhenaten, the Pharaoh Akhenaten came in and said, no more worship of Isis. Egypt has become too feminine. Our men are too effeminate because they're worshiping Isis, the mother. So what we need to do is have a new religion, because everybody in the world comes to our country and rips us off and takes us over and treats us like fools. Why? Because we are feminized. We are effeminate. Our men can't even fight anymore because they're so used to worshiping a mother goddess. So we're going to change the whole religious structure of Egypt, and from here on out, we're going to have a male god. He's going to be a master of the country and a master of the people, and he's going to be a warlord. And so his name will be Amun-Ra, Amun-Ra, Amen-Ra. We would say today, Amen-Ra. Amun-Ra, Amen-Ra. That's why today Christianity is based on Egypt. That's why today Christians at the end of their prayer say Amen, because they're based on the God of Egypt, Amen-Ra, Amen-Ra. And so we put a Y on Ra, becomes Sun-Ray. Well, we're worshiping the sun. This is why Christians are sun worshipers, because they go to church on Sunday. And now, when we get into religion, that's a whole subject. I mean, I could spend 8 hours on that. But the point I'm making is that the Hyksos people learned all about Isis, I-S-I-S. Then, with the coming of Pharaoh Akhenaten changing the religion of Egypt to the worship of a male god, God the Father, not the mother. God the Father takes care of the family. The Father protects the family. So it was the fatherland. And so the Egyptians now were worshiping a god of war, a father, not a woman. And so the father was Amen-Ra, R-A, Amun-Ra. And then when the Hyksos people were finally found out, they were kicked out of Egypt. We're told, and we hear the stories about how Moses went in before Pharaoh and said, let my people go. And Pharaoh didn't want to let the Hebrews go, but Moses went in and demanded, let my people go. And finally, the Pharaoh had to let the Jews go. In point of fact, what happened, no, there was no Moses. Moses never lived, and he never went in to see Pharaoh. It's just a story. That's what the Bible's called the greatest story ever told. It's just a story. There was no Moses who went in before Pharaoh, but there were Hyksos people who were kicked out after they took up a male god, they began to start thinking in terms of fighting, what men do best. And so they started fighting the Hyksos people and chased them out of Egypt, and they chased them northward. So when the Hyksos left out of Egypt, they were being chased out. They didn't go to Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." No, the Egyptians said, "Get out now, or we'll cut your head off." So they ran out. So the Hyksos people left out of Egypt. Again, there was no Moses, just a story, but they went north into an area called Palestine. And the Palestinians already had a god they were worshiping. So the Hyksos people had to learn about a new god. They're going to live in Palestine now. And that god was the planet Saturn. Saturn was referred to as Lord of the Rings. And of course, Saturn is in heaven. He is the Lord of the Rings, the planet Saturn. And so Saturn, in the Phoenician Canaanite language, in the language of the Palestinians, Saturn was called El, E-L. Look it up in the dictionary. El is the name of the god in the Middle East, and what we call Israel today is called El. El was God, but El in the dictionary was the planet Saturn. So the Hyksos people, when they went north into Palestine, they collected up their knowledge of Isis and Ra, and now under El, I-S-R-A-E-L, Israel. The word Israel is the three names of the esoteric gods of the Middle East: Isis, Ra, and El, I-S-R-A-E-L. This is why I say there's nothing holy in Israel. There's nothing holy in the Holy Land. The only thing holy in the Holy Land that I can see are the stories. They're full of holes. People do not know where Israel came from. They have no idea about Hyksos people. They have no idea about Israel, Isaac, I-S-R-A-E-L, Isis, Ra, and El becomes Israel. Most people have no idea about the history of the world and how it has developed over the last thousands of years. You have no idea in the world today. Even the Jews do not know what's going on in Israel. Nobody ever tells them anything, and so they just do the best they can, just like anybody else, never realizing how the government got here. They have no idea about their history. They have zero knowledge about nothing. As a matter of fact, one of the glaring examples of how much the Jews don't know is that the Wailing Wall, where we're treated to every night. You always see the Jews at the Wailing Wall. The Jews at the Wailing Wall, they believe that wall is part of Solomon's temple. And they are there at Solomon's temple to ask God to continue to be with them like he was with King Solomon. But the problem is there was no King Solomon. They never existed. There was no King David or King Solomon. There was no ancient Israel. It was just a story. And even today, the Jews themselves do not realize that that wall is not connected to Solomon's temple. That wall was built by the Romans. Go back and look it up in the encyclopedia. It was a Roman fort. It's called Fort Antonia, after the name of Anthony. Fort Anthony or Fort Antonia. Fort Antonia is today called the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. So the Jews go to Fort Antonia, a Roman fort built by the Romans, and the man who led the Crusades for the Catholic Church, for the Vatican, his name was Rashis. He was a general, and his name was Rashis Bar Isaac. Rashis was Bar Isaac or Salomon Bar Isaac. That's what it was. Rashis was Salomon Bar Isaac, a general that the Pope sent to the Middle East to fight the Crusades. Salomon Bar Isaac was Rashid, the French general who was an authority on Judaism. And that's why Salomon Bar Isaac, when he went into Jerusalem with the Crusades, took over the Dome of the Rock, which was a Roman fort, and it was called Solomon's Temple. Salomon Bar Isaac, Rashid, a French general, not King Solomon, no, Salomon Bar Isaac. Go back and read it in the encyclopedia. And so the Wailing Wall is a Roman wall of a fort built by the Romans. And so the Jews are today praying to their God at a Roman temple and have no idea in the world. No one's ever told them. That's why you keep praying and praying and praying, and nothing is changing. It just gets worse and worse and worse and more confusing, more bloodshed, more war, more alcoholism, drug addiction, corruption on all corners of the earth. Why? Because we don't understand how the world works. We don't know where the history has come from. No one reads. We don't need to read. All you need to do is watch NBC, and they'll tell you what to think. Listen to CBS and listen to all the newsmen who are paid a lot of money to lie to you. They're paid money to tell you whatever their bosses want them to tell you. And I had in my office in Los Angeles many years ago, I had a very famous network announcer, a man you see on the network nightly with the nightly news on the network. He was in Los Angeles and he came to see me. I was shocked to see him because this is such a famous man. And he said, I wanted to come and see you and talk to you and tell you something that I didn't want to tell you on a phone. I want to talk to you in person. So he came to my office in Los Angeles, and he said, you need to realize that people like me who are on the news, the nightly news, the anchors on nightly news, we, in order to get that job, must sign an affidavit which gives up our rights as an American. We give up our rights. You sign a piece of paper in the office of the network that says if you say anything on television, on the nightly news that is not on the teleprompter, they have teleprompters writing you, and what you do is you just read the teleprompters, and that's the news. So whoever's writing the teleprompters is writing the news, and you are being paid a big salary so you can read the news to the people, because people will believe you because you look impressive. You wouldn't be impressed if you saw the guy who was actually writing the news for the network. He's not very impressive looking. So you get the very impressive looking people to be the nightly newscasters, and they will read the news. And so, but what you don't know is that in order to be a nightly newscaster, you have to sign an affidavit, which says that you could go to jail if you say anything that's not written down.
Mr. J. Hey, we're getting ready to go on break at 56 till for about 5 minutes till 1 after. So
okay.
I'm just going to say you're listening to Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. I'm your host, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, and we are talking to Jordan Maxwell today, and with similar guests that you're used to. So check it out. Jordan's website is jordanmaxwellshow.com. And he has an area where all of his research is, and it's a one-time donation for a lifetime of being able to go through all the documents that he has been kind of told not good for the public. So you want to be a member, sign up, make a donation, and then you'll get to go through probably even more stuff that he's actually saying on the show today. So I would suspect more controversial stuff. Maybe even some of that stuff he's not allowed to talk about, you can get as a member on his research society. Yeah. Hey, so I was going to ask you, just really curious, about where I grew up, kind of spiritual, and then also partially in the Pentecostal church. Kind of my family hid there for protection because they were gifted. But we never really had communion or anything like that. And, the more I've aged, the more that I've realized like communion is, making the public think that it's okay to drink blood and eat flesh. I mean, that's kind of like being kind of an outsider of communion. That's kind of what it feels like to me. And I always have these conversations with people about transfiguration, which is kind of like, mystical, spells and all kinds of
reincarnation.
Huh?
Reincarnation.
Yeah. So, but the thing is like, you don't really know whose blood you're drinking and whose body you're eating at communion. I mean, they could,
Yeah, I know. A lot of people do not understand the symbolism, the words, the terms, the ideas, where they came from. They just accept them and never realize that they are accepting something that have been ancient pagan rituals.
Yeah. So one thing I tell people is like, does it, if you first came to this planet and you noticed that there was, human sacrifice and blood drinking and ritual, eating of the flesh and drinking of the blood, I mean, would you notice that the church does it? I mean, does it make it different because you're doing it because of some, religious icon, and it's okay to, be involved in some kind of ritual sacrifice, even though it's more of a energetic? I mean, that could even be worse.
Yeah,
kind of a
right.
thing.
Yeah.
So where does some of this stuff come from, and what are your thoughts about that? Because this is something like, it's really hard to really shake the public awake about all this, human sacrificing and blood drinking and all this stuff. It's epic proportions.
And
So-
the churches assaulting on boys, young boys, Catholic churches, pedophilia with young boys. Well, why do you think they call the young boys in the church altar boys? Because they're on the altar of sacrifice. You're sacrificing your son to the god Moloch. You're sacrificing your son to the god Dagon, Dagon. The Pope does not represent Jesus. He represents a Roman god called Dagon. Look it up in encyclopedia under gods. Dagon. Dagon. Dagon was a Roman god of fish. He was a Roman fish god called Dagon, and he was the one that the Pope today is leading the world to the worship of the Roman fish god Dagon. He wears the hat of Dagon, he wears the robes, and the symbols and the words on the Catholic Church are all the worship of a god named Dagon, an old Roman fish god. It has nothing to do with Jesus.
Right. So this is also kind of where admiralty law comes from, wouldn't it be? The fish people?
That's
the
right.
Fish god?
That's right. Jesus was walking on water. All of those stories in the Bible about Jesus are a metaphor for the fish religion. He was a great fisherman, and all of his followers, they were all fishermen. That's why he's called the great fisherman, the fisher king, the kingfish. It's a very interesting story about religion, and I've spent 60 years studying the occult. The word occult is a Latin word meaning hidden. Your hand, if you put it in your pocket, is by definition is an occult hand. Why? Because it's hidden. You've got it in your pocket, so your hand is hidden. It's an occult hand, meaning anything which is hidden from view is called occult. And that's why the church tries to scare everybody, don't have anything to do with the occult. Why? Because you're going to find out who we are and what we've been preaching to you, And you're going to find out it's all old ancient paganry from the ancient pagan world. So we don't want you reading all that, learning all that. So just shut up and drink your beer, go to church and watch your ball game, and don't worry about, we'll do all the thinking. We'll tell you what to believe. So I learned a long time ago that as a child, I realized adults do not know what they're talking about. As a kid, I would ask questions that nobody would answer. All the adults I asked the same question, nobody had an answer. Everybody gave me what I perceived to be their opinion, not an answer. I don't want your opinion. I want an answer. I want to know for a fact. Well, nobody knows for a fact anything. So I decided at an early age, I have to depend on myself to do the research. So I started living in libraries. I stayed in the libraries continually. And as I grew up and left home at 19 years old, I ended up in Los Angeles, 19 years old, and since 19 years old, and I'm 80 now, it's a long time ago, 60 years, I've been reading and studying and roaming around the big libraries of Los Angeles, UCLA, USC, County USC, and the big theological libraries in Pasadena and Glendale, the big theological libraries. And now with the advent of computers and the web, I'm now living my life on computers, reading and studying all the religions of the world, the cults, the secret societies, international Illuminati secret societies running our government, running our banks, running our military. They're running the whole world for you. And so it's really incredible how much people don't know about how the world works around them. And that's what I do. That's what I've tried to do, is try and wake people up to the real world so that you can stay out of trouble. You don't have to go to court. If you don't know how the world works, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to do something wrong. Why? Because you didn't know. No one ever told you. And why didn't they tell you? Because they don't know either. They're as ignorant as you are. They don't know, so they can't tell you anything. And that's why if you have children, you can't teach your children to be safe. You can't teach them because you don't know. How are you going to tell them when you never heard it? And so they're going to grow up and end up in trouble. They're going to end up on drugs. They're going to end up with alcoholism. They're going to end up in gangs. Your children are going to end up broke and in trouble and probably in jail. Why? Because you didn't teach them. You were not able to teach them what not to do and how to think and how to learn how the world works. You didn't do that. So now your children are suffering because they don't know what they're doing. They're just a poor child out in the world that's being led into doing things. They have no idea what the words mean. They have no idea where anything comes from. And they're just going to end up in trouble. And therefore today, the whole world we live in is lunacy and crazy and in trouble. Why? Because nobody seems to know how the world really works. And that's what I've been trying to do for 60 years, to wake people up.
So I have kind of a question, So do you think that the fish gods were really, well, this is kind of like what I think. I think that even though that some of this information's out there over time, they've really tried to cover things up. So I think originally it was more of a reptoid, right? And then a fish. And then they turned it into a fish because a fish seems nicer. But I think overall they've been eating, mammals for a long time, and we could put humans into that. And then every period they get or chance they get, they try to put that into kind of the mainstream populace that, it's okay to cannibalize, right? It's okay to eat each other so that...
it's a sacrifice.
Right. So people, because they see it, they don't respond to it. They get used to it.
Yeah,
instead of
you're
saying
right.
like absolutely positively not. And I can tell, like, a lot of people now are making claims that, cannibalism, even human cannibalism is safe. And we know that's not true, because when you feed cows back to cows in any shape or form, like they were doing, they get what's called mad cow
Yep.
disease. And if
Yeah.
a human gets a mad cow disease, it's like worse death than HIV, and it is not curable at all. It is like a horrible, horrible death. So I can't even imagine, in the last couple of years, I've seen pictures that have come onto the market, some of these Hollywood stars that have been involved with a lot of, the
Rituals, those
adrenochrome,
ancient
the
rituals.
rituals, and
Yeah.
mostly just eating human flesh, and they're not getting a lot of that human flesh anymore, and they don't look good. They don't look good at all.
They're not doing very good either. Yeah, I
No.
know.
Yeah, so if that's what, cannibalism will do for you, it's like, no, thank you. No, thank you. I like my plant diet. I'm pretty happy with my plant
Yeah, I
diet.
know.
So, okay, so,
Well, let me go back to ancient.
because they've represented it almost so many different cultures. That's how we know how old these beings are, right?
Yeah, it's a very ancient story. Very, very
Right,
ancient.
because somehow they, came ashore in South America and taught who were the brutal ones? Aztecs, that did massive ritualistic sacrifice and human eating and blood drinking. Was that the Aztecs, or was it the Mayans?
Well, let me go back and say
Go ahead.
this though. If you go to the Middle East today, what we call Israel, the country of Israel, thousands of years ago, it was not called Israel. It was called the land of Canaan. The land of Canaan became known today. That particular area is called Israel. But it wasn't called Israel in ancient history. It was called Canaan. And the people who lived there were called Canaanites. And you read in the Bible about the Canaanites. Well, the Canaanites had a god. They had and their god was the sun, the sun god. And so you ask yourself, who owns the sun? Well, nobody on the earth can lay claim that they own the sun, except maybe America. America likes to say they own everything, but they don't. Nobody owns the sun. Well, who does own the sun? Well, theoretically or philosophically, I suppose you could say, if you're religious, you could say God owns the sun. But there's only one sun. We only have one. There's not six of them. So therefore, it's God's son, and he's the only begotten son of God, because there's only one of them. If there were four different sons, then he wouldn't be the only begotten. There would be four of them, but we only have one. So God owns the Son. He's the only begotten Son, and he is the light of the world. The scripture says Jesus is the light of the world. He's God's Son, the light of the world. And I said, yes, the sun that comes up every morning is the light of the world. It lights the whole world. What else lights our world if it isn't the sun that belongs to God? Why? Because it's in heaven. So the sky is called heaven, so God's Son is in heaven, and he is the light of the world. You need to wake up and understand this is nothing more than sun worship. Goes back to the ancient Egyptian. The ancient Egyptian sun worship. If you're going to worship Jesus, you go to something called church on Sunday. S-U-N day, the day of the sun. You go to Sunday. You go to worship God's Son, S-U-N, not S-O-N. In English, in the original King's English many centuries ago, many centuries ago, when English was being developed as a designer language in Europe, English was being put together for us there was something in English that the English teachers in Europe know, but we don't know. It was called the lazy O problem in English. The lazy O. You ask an English teacher in a college, and they may know something about the lazy O. In the history of English, back in the King's time, in the King's English, thousands of years ago, there was something called in English the lazy O problem, meaning that when you come across the word S-O-N or S-U-N was interchangeable. And there were so many different words, S-U-N and S-O-N, that the English translators who brought us today, the modern day English, they said it's the same identical word, A-E-I-O and U, O and U. So one is S-O-N and one is S-U-N, but they're the same identical word for that round globe that comes up in the morning. It lights up the world. So in English, S-O-N and S-U-N are interchangeable. Look it up in ancient English. It's called the lazy O principle of the word sun, S-U-N or S-O-N.
I have a friend of mine who they belong to a church where they do sun worship, basically, in the sky, sun worshiping in the sky. And they're considered sun gazers. And people come, from all over the place to do sun gazing at this place. But she always tells me, she said, I worship the sun in the sky, not the sun on the cross.
That's right. That's right. That's the point.
Another thing, too, so this is kind of like my take on the cross and Jesus, just to kind of run this by you. But, when I was a kid, my family kind of hid in Pentecost. Pentecost was pretty wild when I was growing up. There was a lot of crazy stuff. So you got to be really, the women in my family were very, let's just say, had a lot of, gifts that were out of this world. So they fit pretty good into the Pentecost. We hid there for safety. But the thing that I was always astonished about is looking at this person on this cross was the blood coming down, that he's like nailed to wood. And I always got the impression, even as a little girl, that this is like their symbol of what they'll do to you. It's like, look, if you think that this person, so they tell you like, oh yeah, the sun is going to save you of all your sins and stuff. But at the same time, they give you a symbol that registers in your left hemisphere, right? Doesn't register in the left hemisphere, but registers in the right hemisphere as something completely different than your experience in church. And basically, it's a man that's tortured to death, right? The symbol of a person that's tortured to death, nailed to something to where he can't get away at all. And then eventually, he dies under these, like, probably one of the most torturous conditions of all. And it's almost like they put that up so that it's like a warning to you. If you think that you're going to get away with it, or you think that somebody is going to save you, look at what we did to this person.
That's right. That's right. It's, even the Bible has Jesus saying, if people had listened to me, they would listen to you. But they did not listen to me, they will not listen to you. Why? Because, what was the term he used? That people will listen to you, and they would listen to me. And he said, but they didn't listen to me. And so Jesus is a metaphor. It's a symbolic, Jesus is a symbolic name for the sun that comes up every morning. He is our resurrected and our great God who has come back. He said he would be dead for 3 days and come back, and he would come back and save humanity.
Yeah,
so today he does.
And then there's the 12 basically astrology signs that are the 12 disciples, and that the sun, Jesus, has a relationship with each one of them every month.
That's right.
Changes the
That's why you have
relationship.
12 brothers of Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 apostles. Everything in the Bible is done in 12. Why? Because there's only 12 months of the year, the 12 signs of the zodiac with one sun and 12 helpers.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think, like I'm kind of with you on so many different things. I mean, you've really over the years really helped me to kind of fine tune, what I see, what I feel, what I experience. But I think, if we think that anyone is coming to save us, whether ascension is just new age, but it's the same as the rapture, that somehow you're going to be able to get away from this, that there's going to be somebody that's going to save you, out of this world.
Unfortunately, there's going to be nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I mean, so what do you think about like what's going on? I mean, have you like taken a look at what's going on with the banking system? I mean, 2 weeks ago, all of the head bankers in the world met up in, Wyoming, the club of bankers, the club of the riverbanks. and
it's a big club, and you mean in it.
Yeah, your bills are in it, but you're not in it. So, but they came out and said that they were looking into basically adopting a cryptocurrency and getting rid of the U.S. dollar. And then like the next week, the Bank of Switzerland, which is where the home of the pharaohs, which can't be trusted either, came out and opened the first cryptocurrency bank. So guess who's going to be the new Federal Reserve for cryptocurrency? Let's see, that's Switzerland.
The more we change, the more we stay the same. Still the same old game.
Yeah.
First of all, there was gold and silver coins. Then later on, they changed it to paper money. Later on, they changed it to credit cards and plastic cards. Now they're changing it to cryptocurrency. All of this is being done by something the Bible calls the money changers. Not loose change like quarters and nickel. No, the people who change the concept of money, the money changers. So they've changed it from gold and silver coin to credit cards to paper money, and now they're going to crypto. Everything is being changed because they're the money changers.
Right, so they have to do it to make us, they get to a pivotal point where we're all really unhappy globally, or, and then what they do is they change it and make it look like it's going to be nicer. For example, I was watching this interview yesterday with the guy from, what's his name? He does the money thing on RT News, right? He has this show. I forget what it's called. He's really good. But he had a guy on there that is like a stock guy, talks a lot about gold and stuff. And one of the things that he said was that, every so often, the country that has the wealth, they will take the wealth from and give it to another country, and then that country will reign for a while, kind of like over time. And he was talking about how, back 2,000 years ago, this was the country that had all the wealth, and then it got taken away, and they elected a new country, to be the wealth, to hold the wealth. And then they said, he said that this is how it's been going on for thousands of years. So the U.S. is being, pushed out of the way. And now, not that one country is going to have the wealth in one place. Now they've designed, hey, let's use cryptocurrency, right? So no country can be the superior country. You know what I mean? So it's almost like they've created another system of where they can control everybody.
That's right.
And not from one country.
That's precisely right. And everybody thinks it's so clever that you can go into the market and just use a card. They just put your hand out, and the machines will read your hand, and that's your credit card is your hand. It's in your hand. But what nobody seems to think about is the fact that if that's so easy to do, walk into the supermarket and they just use they run the machine over your hand, the light over your hand, and it reads your hand, and therefore it's your credit card. But if that's the case, they can also do something in the computer that when you show your hand and the computer reads your hand, your bank account has been shut down. You don't have any money. I don't care if you were left $1 million. You find out when you go to the market, you don't have any money. Why? Because the computerized system that we have says that you don't have any money, period. So your credit card is no good. You've been turned down. Now what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Because they control the computer, they control the headquarters, they control you. Now you're in trouble because they will not let you use your credit. They will not let you use your card. You can't buy anything. You can't go anywhere. So now they've got you good.
Well, did you see that thing about 6 months ago? A lot of people freaked out when it kind of, they pranced it out into mainstream media, and they didn't get the response that they wanted. But if they keep, giving us, the 3 try rule, you do that with birds and animals. If they don't really like what you're feeding them, after the 3rd time, they'll eat it, right? Because they're used to it. Yeah. It becomes common. So that's what I see that they do with us, is that they, keep presenting stuff until we're accepting of it.
Well, that's what the Nazis said. Tell a lie long enough and people will believe it.
Yeah. But they, paraded out this kind of thing that, in the near future, in order to get a bank account, when it all kind of goes to digital, that you'll have to give 2 drops of your blood to the bank. And I thought that was interesting, because if they get a hold of your individual DNA legally in this world, they can copyright it, which means that they can sell you and your DNA to other extraterrestrials that actually create, biosuits.
Look at that is exactly correct. You're right. They can buy and sell you, your body and your blood. That's why on the back of your Social Security card, the numbers on the back of your Social Security card represent your blood and flesh. And on a lot of the old Social Security cards, the numbers are in red. The reason they're in red, today they could be black or blue or red. Most of the Social Security cards in the old days were all red because it represents your blood.
Wow,
on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, I knew it represented, you as a vessel, right?
Yep.
Lost at sea, and the trust that they appoint themselves to. But, like this whole DNA blood thing, it takes it just to a whole new level. And, the thing is that you have to ask yourself, this is kind of like where my questioning has led me, but who are they going to be selling your DNA and all this other stuff to? Well, it has to be off-world, because they're the only ones that really know, how to make us entrap our energy bodies as batteries and then stick us in. And they traffic us. You have this is what I know for a fact. They have extraterrestrials that, harvest our ISB. Some call it the ISB, some call it the soul, some battery. But they harvest that when you die, hold it in a container called the human experience, and it's in a prison cell. And they can actually throw you back in to incarnate you into another biosuit at will, to get you to, in the chain, to continue to be a slave, or they can traffic you somewhere else. And people are just don't really understand how this works, because even people that follow the UFO thing, and they're like, oh yeah, the tractor beam pulled him up into a ship. But then you've got the light from, the heaven experience. That's a tractor beam. It pulls you in. You can't escape it. You can't get away from it. So people have this disassociation between that, that light from heaven could be a tractor beam. You know what I mean? And they're hoisting your spirit up so that they can actually, do what they want to do with it. And if you're going to fight, they'll give you a computer generated experience that makes you settle down. Oh, you believe in Jesus? Okay, here's a holographic image of Jesus talking to you, and Jesus will help you up the light so that we can
exactly
capture
right.
you.
That's basically what's going on in the technological world today. It's all tricks and smoke and mirrors to eventually one day suck in the whole human race into a computerized program. That's why when you watch television, it's called a TV program. Why? Because it's programming your brain. It's a motion picture or a television program. So it's computerizing a program for your head, for your mind. It's programming you. We call it mind control.
Yeah, that's the smart meters, that's I've talked to a lot of people that talk about living in like apartment and condo buildings where the smart meters are actually regulating their own mind, where they start to see a lot of things that aren't there, like bugs.
You're right.
Because they're like, I guess they have to fracture your mind between what's real and what's not real and what's programmed in order to get you transhumaned?
Yep. Exactly right. That's exactly what it's called, transhumanism. We used to be human, but now they're translating us into something that's not human anymore. We're so crazy now as a human race. We can't even think anymore. We can't understand anymore. We're totally controlled and owned by our masters who run the world. And like George Carlin said, the people who run this planet, it's a big club, and you ain't in it. And so the people in the big club will decide what you will understand and what you will know and where you will go, what you will do for work. And so eventually this is going to come out that the human race has been controlled from day one. And I don't think we've ever had human freedom because too many people do not understand the complete idea of freedom. We don't have freedom in America. We have something in New York called the Statue of Liberty, not the Statue of Freedom. Liberty means you ask permission. If you want to go out on a date, you go get your father's car and you just take off with it. No, you ask permission. And if he gives you permission, then you have the license to drive the car. You don't have the freedom. You ask permission. And if you get permission, you've got the liberty to do it. This is why you're told don't take liberties with other people you don't have. Liberty means you ask permission. So that Statue of Liberty is a maritime admiralty symbol. It's not the Statue of Freedom. It's the Statue of Liberty. It's in a New York harbor. It's in a water. It's a maritime water symbol of liberty. You ask permission. Why? Because when a Navy ship pulls into a harbor, the Navy guys on the ship, they don't have freedom. You're in the Navy. You don't have any freedom. So don't think you're free to just do anything you want. You're not free. You ask permission to leave the ship to go out for a while. And if the captain gives you permission, it's called liberty. The sailor has liberty. Doesn't mean you have freedom. You don't have any freedom. You ask permission to go. And if you're given permission, you got to be back by, say, 12 midnight. And if you're not, then you are AWOL, you're absent without leave, and you'll be arrested. Why? Because you don't have the freedom to do what you want. You have liberty. So we have a Statue of Liberty, and incidentally, the Statue of Liberty is male, not a female. People think the Statue of Liberty is female. It's not. It's a Statue of Liberty is a male image.
Yeah, a transgender, right? Or what
That's
we would
right.
consider a transgender.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, I don't really talk about this kind of stuff a lot publicly. But I'm going to tell you about it and the listeners, but because I'm still kind of working it out. So I was, born with gifts, that probably most people don't have. Let me just say, like, nobody that I've ever met has a lot of the gifts that I have. So I've had kind of a really confusing, complicated life. But about
I know what that's like.
Yeah, about 6. Well, I've been doing what I call shamanism seated. I call them shaman medical sessions, and what they are is people set up appointments with me. Now it's pretty much on Zoom, and I look through, let's just say, their timelines, gateways, and all kinds of different areas, that I can do within a certain amount of time with these seated sessions. And what I do is I start to clean up what has happened to them and where they've been, where they're kind of fractured out, and also stuff that may be causing some of their health problems now.
Yep.
So 6 years ago, they started the stream. That's what I call it. I call it the great, computer system. And I plug into that. And then I pull it onto one point, which is the person that I'm working on. And then for the most part, I only saw the past and the present of all the different things that were going on. And then I could choose which lines of information that I wanted to follow, dealing particularly what's going on with them in the present moment. So about 6 years ago, the stream started sending me to their future lives. And I was in a session with this woman, and we went to this future life that was like so unbelievably horrific that I couldn't actually wrap my head around it. And so it's taken like 6 years to try to figure all of the details out. So basically what I saw was that she was having this battle with her ex-husband, so much so that she was becoming psychotic over it. And she was going over to, they're divorced at this point, but she's going over to his house and doing things that's like so out of character, like throwing stuff at his window, screaming at him, getting arrested, and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And she's just like, I don't know how to stop it. I can't really stop this behavior. I don't even know where it's coming from. I've gone like, bat shit completely crazy. I just don't even know what's going on. This is how she ended up with me. So when I looked, they showed me into the future life. She had basically created some kind of like agreement, financial agreement, some kind of agreement with him, and that he was, he's elite, and it was like set up for like 2350, right? Year 2350. And that basically at that point in time here on this planet, based on what these people are doing and setting up, and that she's caught into it, right? Directly. And that is affecting her now and making her crazy, is that she has this contract with him that she would come back as like a battery. They would put her in this biological suit that was pretty tall. I would say, maybe like 9 or 10 feet tall, biosuit. It had this pole that was like attached kind of to the shoulder blades and the back of the neck. And there was this porthole that went up to the base of the brain. And then there was a chair, like this weird chair mechanism for a being to sit in on the right side of the pole that came out off the biosuit body. And the thing is by then, whoever is still living on this planet and controlling it, their bodies are going to be like pruny bodies with these little legs and these little hands, but their brains will still be good, but their bodies will be totally ineffective, and that they will sit on these ports And these ports, they'll regulate the mind of the biosuit body, which her body, her spirit is going to be in. And so they'll use that as a battery, right? Kind of a thing to make this whole thing operate. So when the thing on the seat says, in its mind, walk, it'll just be in sync with the biosuit, and the biosuit will carry it wherever he wants it to go, or she. And that, and I realized, this is why she's crazy, because she knows on some level, like, something is really, really wrong, and something is up to the point where she's acting out against it with him now in this experience, about what he's going to be doing with her in the future. And I literally, I wouldn't actually do sessions with people for almost 10 months because I really wasn't sure. What I did with her was I tried to deactivate most of it that I could. I started just unplugging a lot of stuff, kind of refocusing, giving her kind of more of a platform to kind of work in the now. Really taught her some shamanism skills, to try to offset that as well. But I was kind of terrified that the stream may show me more future lives, and kind of like where we're headed. And this has made me really uncertain about like a GCR, global currency reset, and all of these things, and the playing field being fair is like, no, because that doesn't make sense, because I wouldn't have seen what I've seen in the future if that was taking place now. It would be something different, right?
Yes. Yep. I think so. Yes. And, this whole idea about us being an biological, electrical battery, this is why when you go to court, if you can't pay to get out of the trouble, then your body is a ship, and therefore you have to be bailed out because you're underwater, you are in hot water, and you have to be bailed out. And so if you can't pay your bail, then they will put you into a cell. Why? Because your body is a battery. That's what you put. Your body is a battery, and the battery is referred to as a cell. You have your batteries today, we refer to as a cell. So that's why they put you into jail. They put you into a cell where they can keep your body as a biological battery. And they can buy and sell you on the stock market. It's an incredible story about how the human body works and what goes on in a court. And this is all part of what you're talking about, yeah?
Yes, you're like one of the first people that I've actually told that story to. And I was depressed. I was depressed for her. I was depressed for the future. I was hopeless. Like it really scared the out of me. It took me a couple of years to actually kind of retrieve myself in a way where I'm like, okay, that's happening, but I can still choose, what I want to think now. I can still choose what I want to do now, and try to move forward,
that's why
helping people.
When people tell me, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, I've said so many times, it's a train coming. As I'm like you, I've become very depressed because I've seen the future. I know what's coming. I know who these people are and what they're doing, the secret societies and how they put this thing together, how they put the courts together, the governments together, the money, and I know where they're going with it. I can see it coming, and that's why I said, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a train coming.
So what do you think? Okay, so we have 10 minutes left. Thanks for having this, great conversation. Mm-hmm. Because I don't really have a lot of people that I can actually tell people things to, because I get into the category of being a fearmonger when what I'm trying to tell people is fact, right? Truth and fact.
I know all about it. That's what they say about me. I'm a fearmonger.
Yeah.
And I'm a conspiracy. What do you call conspiracy?
Theorist.
Theorist.
Yeah.
Yeah, conspiracy theorist. I always say, no, I'm a conspiracy analyst.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
smart enough
serious.
to analyze the world I live in.
Yeah.
And that's what I see as a conspiracy. Because I know all about the official underworld, the organized criminal world today. Organized crime is very well a conspiracy between people who know what they're doing, and they're
So
ripping off the public.
we have about 8 minutes. So, I mean, is there anything particular that you do to just, I mean, I try to stay in balance. My last native teacher, he really taught me how to like stay in balance with everything because,
Yeah,
it is what it is and it will be what it's going to be. But how are you going to consciously show up to it,
I
when it
agree.
happens?
Yeah.
So, do you have any techniques that you use? Like, say you just, remembered something or something's just happened and you just feel like, crawling into a big dark hole. I mean, is there anything that you do? Like, do you reassure yourself? Do you meditate? Do you go outside and scream obscenities? Is there anything that you do to help yourself stay in balance?
Well, I just understood the word faith. We have people who use the word faith, and so in Christianity, we're told that Christians have faith. But in point of fact, in Christianity, the word faith does not mean what the Christians think it does. That's why they pray and pray and pray to God for protection and for security. And the more they pray, the worse things get. It's because they don't understand what faith means. Faith is an ancient Greek word. And the best way to explain what faith really is in the ancient Greek language is basically when you get up each morning, why do you put your feet on the floor without looking? You do it all the time. You put your feet on the floor and you didn't even look to see if there was a floor. Or there could have been a lot of glass there and tacks, but you didn't look. You just put your feet on the floor and got up. In Greek, that's what the word faith means. It means just to get up and go and do whatever you're going to do. And God has always been there. God is there now, and God will always be there. There'll always be a floor. So don't even bother to look at the floor. Just get up and go do what you're going to do. God's always been there. God's there now. God will always be there. So what are you talking about, God? I don't know. But there is a great spirit in the universe that seems to overshadow human life. There is some sort of a higher intelligence in the universe. It's always been there. It is there now. And it always will be there. So we call that spirit God. So the real understanding of faith is just get up every morning and go do what you're going to do. You don't have to hope and pray and hope and pray. There's no need to hope and pray about nothing. Just get up and go do whatever it is you are going to do, and God will be there. And ask for guidance. Ask the Great Spirit for guidance, and God will be there. But you don't have to worry yourself to death over it. So that's what faith means. Just get up and go do what you're going to do. Ask God to provide and guide you and protect you. But just get up and go live. Go live your life. Go do whatever it is you want to do. You don't have to hope and pray that something's going to happen and hope this and hope that. There's no need for hope. Just get up and go do what you're going to do. God's always been there. Will be there when you're gone. Always has been and always will be. So there's no need for you to question and hope for anything. So that's what I do. I live by faith, meaning I just get up in the morning and do the best I can, and that's it. And I don't care where it goes. I don't care if people think I'm crazy. It doesn't matter what people think. I just do the best I can and help and try and help people. And I get all kinds of problems with this, but I don't care. It's because I want to just help people, so I don't care what the outcome is going to be. I just do what I do and hope for the best.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the one thing, like your journey and my journey are similar, but there isn't really anything else I can do. and everything that leads me down these rabbit holes. I mean, really, the only thing I can do is try to educate the public. There aren't any other options that are left to me. So that's it. That's all I have. And people either like it or they don't like it. But I mean, the inquiry of type of information, kind of lends itself, to being able to talk to other people about it.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. I talk to other people about. I'm just trying to help people to wake up. And I realize that most people, adults, still look at the world as a child. They don't know how it works. And I'm trying to help people to wake up and see how the world actually works. And that's why I've got that research society on my website that people need to join. Because you will find all kinds of incredible stuff on there that you've never heard before, especially in documents. There's some incredible documents that most people have never read, don't know exist, never heard of it, and it explains a lot about the world you live in and how the world really works. And there's a lot of audio and video stuff on there that will blow your mind. Lectures you've never heard before, and some extraordinary stuff that has been known for a long time. Many years ago, I heard, and I had to go back and find those lectures and put them on my website because they're mind-blowing stuff. People have never heard how the world really works. And so that's what I do with my research website. So go on my website to Jordan Maxwell Show and join my Research Society website. You will find it as crammed filled with information you've never heard before. Extraordinary stuff.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to you coming on again. What are you going to talk about next time?
Oh, goodness. There are so many subjects, so many. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, it'll be good. I love listening to you talk, and I love getting to talk to you. Kind of have selfish reasons for you being on my show.
Yeah, well, I'm always very happy to be on with you. So anytime you want to do a show, let me know, and I'll always be here. I'll try and be here. It's very difficult for me sometimes because at 80 years old, I don't feel well. Sometimes I'm not well at all, and I can't make the show even though I'm supposed to.
That's all right.
So
I have all kinds of people that are that way, people with cancer and autoimmune disease. And sometimes, the day of the show, they're like, look, I can't even hold a phone up. I'm like, okay, well, let me search for another guest. We'll rebook you.
Yeah. Well, always keep in mind that that's a possibility.
Yep.
Because I've done so much radio myself in the past 45 years. I know. Always have an extra show ready.
Yep. Nope. I'm always well together on that. And if I have to do a 2-hour show myself, they're not as good, but it teaches me a lot about my vocabulary that I'm using, information that I'm talking about, and, actually helps me to be a little bit more confident.
Of course.
In my system. So I don't regret those kinds of days at all. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on. And I just super appreciate it. And as usual, it was a great conversation. And
thank you.
Yeah. And everybody, will see you on the Wednesday edition at noon Eastern Standard Time to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, carrying stones and digging holes. Also on Wednesdays. So we'll see you this next Wednesday. And we're going to be talking homestead on next Wednesday. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks, Jordan. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.